We have probably the strongest healthcare union in the state of Florida, and we've done actually really well. The biggest union for nurses in the United States, with over 225,000 members, is the CNA. Our vacancy rate is the best in the state of Florida at 6% right now.
Wow. You just proved having a union is one of the most powerful ways to make sure that nurses get the benefits that they've been dreaming of. What is up, guys? Jason here. Welcome back to the channel in our series, Nurses to Riches, The Road to Fire. In this episode, I am interviewing a nurse union rep for one of the highest paying hospitals in the state of Florida. Joseph is going to show us a side of nursing that most of us don't know about, and we're going to talk about the importance of being part of a union. He's also going to talk about a facility that pays nurses over $80 per hour in his state. So with that, let's get to it. Let us know who you are and what it is that you do.
I've been a nurse for 10 years, ICU nurse by specialty, and for the last 4 years, I've been working full-time as a released union representative organizer.
Okay. How old are you?
46. 46.
Okay. So you graduated when you were 36.
Yeah.
Awesome. You know, a lot of people are in their 20s and they're like, am I too old to be a nurse? They're like 25, 26 years old.
Yeah, totally not. No, nursing, I mean, we get some people that get into nursing, even older than me. So, even though I'm working full time as a union representative, I love nursing, and I've actually began again recently to start to I'm eligible to do overtime in my current position. So I work my 40 hours a week as a union representative, but then on Saturdays and Sundays when I'm off, I can work overtime. And I've been doing that.
Interesting. Okay, so where did you grow up?
Toledo, Ohio.
And where are you now?
Miami, Florida.
Okay, so you said you graduated 10 years ago, and did you go to school in Toledo, Ohio?
Okay, so I started my prerequisites, my schooling for nursing in Lansing, Michigan at Lansing Community College. I think it's still called that. My sister lives there. My sister went to Michigan State University. There was a time when I was kind of like resetting myself, and I moved in with my sister, and then I started my college there. Then when I later on moved to first Jacksonville, Florida, then to my father's house in Atlanta, and eventually I decided I've always kind of wanted to live in Miami, so I had my father help me and moved to Miami. And at that point, once I got here, I had all my prereqs done. Maybe I had like one to do, and I applied for the nursing school here at Miami-Dade College, and I got in.
Oh, awesome. And do you have any student loan debts?
Yes, I
Okay.
think around in between 70 and 80,000, and I'm not paying on it currently right now.
Okay. And when you went into nursing school, what was the intention behind it? Like, why did you even go to nursing school to begin with? I know you said you took some prerequisites, but when you took those prerequisites, did you have the intention of going to nursing school, or you just wanted to take some extra classes?
No, it was always for nursing. I mean, not my whole life, but at the point when I decided, obviously as you said, 34, 35 or whatever, maybe it was when I started college, maybe I was actually maybe late 20s actually, because, all of these things happen over the course of several years. But I always liked fitness. I like the body. I like science. And, just naturally, I'm a very empathetic person. I like to help people. And I knew about the economic financial stability of nursing. So it seemed like a great way to go. And I still think it is.
Yeah. And, the reason I ask is because you were in your 30s when you started taking the prerequisites for nursing. A lot of people would probably wonder, why didn't you start sooner? Was there something that kept you from that? Were there life decisions that you made that delayed you getting into nursing school or going towards that route?
Yeah, that's a great question. When I was like 18, I come from like 4 generations of family that worked for the railroad. And when I was 18, I actually had a job at a steel mill in Detroit, Michigan. But I remember when my dad called me and he said, "Hey, I got you the job on the railroad," which was Conrail at the time. So at 18, and obviously the economy, everything was way different back then. But, going back to 1998, I was 18, and I think my starting wage was like $22, $23 an hour. It was huge. This is back in 98. So I got the job on the railroad. I was quickly promoted to yard master, which is like a traffic, not quickly, but within a few years, and in the middle of an acquisition. I was promoted to yard master, which is the same thing as it's like a traffic controller, but with trains, and you deal with things, more or less on a, like, for instance, my district was Toledo, right? Any trains for Norfolk Southern coming in and out of Toledo, I would direct their movement, and I would have crews that would, break down trains and maybe service industries like Heinz. Anyways, that's a long answer to a short question, but that was my first, like, real career, right? And eventually I electively took a demotion because I wanted to live in Florida. So I went from yardmaster back to crew dispatcher down here in Jacksonville, Florida. And, eventually I found myself not working for the railroad anymore. And I went through a period of bad jobs, let's say, not bad, but like, I want to say bad, but like landscaping, restaurants, construction, things that didn't pay so great and were also very difficult. So I think, ultimately the decision to become a nurse was, wanting a career and wanting something that I feel like I could really embrace. And that's what landed me in nursing.
I love that story because that's actually a lot of the struggles and that's kind of the journey that a lot of people face is, when you first graduate high school,
Mm-hmm.
you're trying to figure out what it is that you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And many people don't really know. It takes a while to really get to the point where, you know what, I actually do know now. And by the time you reach that point, you might be in your 30s, 40s, even 50s. Because when I was in nursing school, I had many second degree and third degree, nursing students who had enrolled or had gotten their degrees in other areas who decided that they weren't happy in those areas and they wanted to pursue nursing instead. And for me, what I did was like immediately after graduating high school, like even when I was in high school, I was working as in a work study program where I was working for the Bank of New York for like 3 years. And I thought I wanted to get into finance because I was so obsessed with mathematics.
Mm-hmm.
And, my salary at the time, I mean, my wage, I was making maybe like $7 to $8 an hour as a high school student. And I thought that was terrible. But I knew that at the end, if I would have continued to pursue my degree in finance or business, I could probably get a job like all the other that we had, like sales agents that used to work in the office that I worked in, and they were making like $10,000 a week.
Wow.
So I could envision myself being one of them. And after I got a raise, like the first raise I ever got from my director, I went from like, I think it was like $7.10 per hour to like $7.25 per hour.
Yeah.
And when I only got a 15-cent raise, I went up to him and I told him that it's an insult for me to get a 15-cent raise when we have coworkers that are making $10,000. Even though I didn't have my degree, I was still pursuing it. So I was just, appalled by the fact that he would only give me a 15-cent raise. Meanwhile, he was making like $700,000 a year. And that was just his base pay, not including all the bonuses and incentives he got on a yearly basis. So
Yeah.
I left. I left that
Good.
job.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah. And I ended up, I continued to pursue other jobs along the way. Most of them were in the finance sector.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, what happened was, and I realized this quickly, is that when you work in finance, at the end of the day, if they don't meet their bottom line, which is just get more clients to make more money, then the company doesn't make any money. So they'll get rid of the employees that, produce the least amount of results for them. And if you're just working like me, I was working as a risk analyst. At one point, I was working customer service. You don't make the money for them. It's the sales agents that make the money for them. It's the bankers. So they laid off 50 employees in one of the jobs that I held. And I just said I couldn't see myself continuing that path. So that's when I decided to go into nursing. So, but similar to you,
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I was wondering, what age
Yeah.
were you when you went into nursing?
Yeah. So when I started taking prerequisites, I was around 25, 26.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
39 now. So I've been a nurse for like 11 years. Yeah, 11 years. But I started taking the prerequisites around when I was 25, 26 years old. I graduated as a nurse when I was 28, 29 years old. I was actually turning 29 at the time.
Yeah.
Um,
Nice.
but yeah, no. So I've been a nurse for it's almost 11 years pretty much.
Yeah,
And
we got.
honestly, I think it was the best decision for me, even for my wife, because without nursing, we wouldn't be where we are today. There's so many options, so many opportunities, so many pathways that you can take as a nurse.
Yeah.
And people think it's just the bedside. It's not. That's why I like to interview people like you, people like I've interviewed in the channel, because, we can see where you came from and where you are today. And it's
Yeah.
a completely different, path that you've taken to get to where you are.
Totally. I mean, I love that about nursing. And I think that's awesome, kind of, the moment that brought you to that decision. But the opportunities are endless. Even though you're my favorite social media account that I follow regarding like nursing, there's another one. I think it's called APRN Beauty. I don't know if you've seen that one. She's
Yeah.
Anyways, what did she say? One of her posts, it was like, when you get tired of bedside nursing, but you're mastered, so it doesn't matter. Like she's saying she has her master's so she can go and, she has a good following too. I mean, do you know who I'm referring to?
I do. I do.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool. Yeah.
I need to reach out to her. Maybe I can interview her.
Yeah, you guys should do something. I mean, you guys should collaborate definitely because
Yeah.
she has a lot of like very interesting posts. I mean, I definitely connect and relate more to like you and your wife. It's Monica, right?
Yes.
Yeah, because my wife and I are both nurses. That was her calling me actually. She was like not sure about a insulin order or whatever, and she's a newer nurse. She only has like 2 years, but a lot of times, obviously being a union rep, union organizer, I know a lot about California, and I kind of knew about Sacramento. I didn't know as much as I knew before you told me, but I kind of knew that Sacramento was this like the spot where the pay is really good and the cost of living is at this point it's less than Miami, right? In Miami, cost of
Yeah.
living is like housing. My mortgage is $5,400 a month. So
What?
yeah, that let me tell you, it is a lot. Like, and my wife and I are working overtime right now, which is the only reason why we're not completely broke, but it's a lot. Yeah, the 5,400 is a lot. It's a lot. I think it would be a lot for anybody, but
Yeah.
particularly for the income that, yeah, I mean, I guess just to put it in more like numbers like you normally do, it's like around in between 55 and 60% of our base take home pay.
Oh man.
Yeah, so it's a
Wow.
lot. Yeah.
Yeah, and to put that into perspective, so Monica, like I actually just made a live stream yesterday where we broke down our monthly income, our average monthly income, and our average take home. So the average take home, if you don't include our business, is about like net. I'm talking about net numbers here. It's like 14,600, and that's with Monica working an average of 17 and a half hours a week.
Wow.
I'm working about 19 hours, 18 to 19 hours a week, and we're bringing home like 14,900. Now, when you include our business income, it's closer to like $17,000 a month, right? And that's our net take home pay. And then when you take into account how much we pay for our mortgage, we spend about $4,200 a month or so on our mortgage. So it's about 25% of our take home pay that we
Yeah.
spend on our mortgage.
Yeah, it's bad. It's honestly bad. And it's funny you say that because our normal, I say net take home pay without overtime is, close to around 10K or whatever. But now that
Yeah.
since we're doing overtime, like we got paid today and the check, because we get our direct deposits like together, so it comes
Yeah.
in as one sort of same company and it was like 7 grand. But I've told her, we haven't had the courage. I've told her for a long time now, like, and my friend actually works for a Kaiser in LA. He works for the Kaiser in LA. He has a per diem and he tells me about how, after 5 years, you get pension, you get paid time off. He's an ICU nurse just like me. We both kind of work together in neuro ICU, but I mean, he goes out there, I don't know, once or twice a month, whatever. He has a place he rents for like an amazingly cheap price from a retired nurse. He goes out there and works like whatever it is, 7 days in a row, works these like, super long shifts and he kills it. And like you, when I think about like, okay, you said 19 hours a week. I think really getting to the point, like you're taking home with 19 hours a week what my wife and I are taking home when we're both working like 60 to 70 hours a week. Crazy.
Dude, wait. So it's actually Monica and I, we work 37. If you combine our working hours, right? That's 37 and a half working hours
Mhm.
per week combined. And you guys have to work, just you alone have to work more than 40 hours, right?
Yeah,
You're
no,
not even
you're
including
talking
your wife.
60. You're less than 40 hours compared to
Yeah.
our, like, let's say 110 to 130, whatever it is. I mean, we could, hypothetically or whatever, we could be renting for a lot less. We do have a beautiful house. Buying a house in Miami is, we paid 600K. It was the end of 2022. We barely scraped together 50K, for the closing cost, down payment. Interest rate was 6.42. So yeah, that's why we're in, and that 5,400 includes the property taxes, the, oh my God, insurance, everything. 5,400 that's everything, which is still a lot. But anyhow, even recently we've been thinking about, we could rent this out. We could probably only rent it for like 4 grand, rent it out and still go out to like Sacramento, get a couple of per diem positions. And I don't know, I guess maybe it's a courage thing. I do love my job. I kind of love what I do. I have a lot of autonomy. I mean, organizing and being a nurse, but still, even though I love it, like not enough to struggle this much financially. you know.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, you can love your job as much as you want, but if you
Mm,
can't afford the cost of living, then what's it all for? Like you're not gonna bury yourself in debt because you love your job, right? That's what I try to tell nurses. It's not about the money. It's not.
yeah,
But it does play a role. It has to, because at the end of the day, we all still have bills to pay. And
yeah,
I don't know. We'll get into it, but I want to talk about more things like, do you have
mhm,
kids and all these things, because that also plays a role into it. Because
mhm.
if you're a family of like three, four, five,
Or yeah,
there you go, right? You have kids that you have to worry about. So you want to make sure that you're in a nice neighborhood. Your kids are not going to get mugged or injured or attacked while they're walking home from school or taking the bus home from school. You got to think about these things as a family,
yeah,
right? So you got to live in a safe neighborhood when you're looking for a home that you want to buy. And when you're looking to buy a home in a nice neighborhood, it comes with a price tag, right? So you got to think about all these things. It's very important. Some people have mentioned in the comments that, the stuff I talk about on these videos is all money related, which, if they watch our live streams, a lot of the times in the live streams, I talk about personal experiences, personal stories, situations in which I've been in a part of where I've had like 18 patients assigned to me when I worked in New York. And
mhm.
they neglect all of that. Like they neglect all the hardships that I've had to deal with as a nurse. And they only focus on the parts where I talk about the money. And I feel like that's the worst way to look at it.
Yeah, those people are honestly, I've seen them on your page before and I've seen their comments, but those people are honestly fake or phony. And they try to pretend that, if somebody says that, like a lot of my decision to get into nursing was financially driven, which anybody who knows me knows that I'm one of the most caring, empathetic, like anybody who knows who I am, like you definitely would want me to take care of your family members as a nurse. Not because I'm like the smartest, most skilled nurse, but because I'm like kind hearted person and I'm going to take care of them. I prioritize patient care. I work hard. But those people that want to kind of like demonize anybody who mentions that they're doing this for any reason for money, that's just a line of BS, because that kind of like empowers people to make it sound like you can't do both, right? We can be passionate and be excellent nurses. Like I've really, as a nurse, I can tell you, like when I work as a nurse, which I did last Sunday, I will this Saturday, I've grown so much in 10 years. And now, when I go in and work as a nurse, and I take a lot of pride in it, and I always sleep well with my nursing practice. I spend my 12 hours pretty much at the bedside doing my, patient care. I like to have my computer right in there documenting as I assess. I put my whole heart and soul into nursing. I take it very seriously. I don't take it lightly at all. But nonetheless, those people that want to demonize you or anybody for monetizing or talking about the monetary aspect, I think a lot of them are fake. I guess there's a small percentage that might think that, yeah, are there people that are bad nurses and are only in it for money? Sure.
Absolutely.
I think any good person who's kind-hearted is gonna and really works hard is gonna make a good nurse, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And just what you said, yeah, there can be nurses out there who really are only in it for the money, and they may be terrible nurses, but this goes for every profession, every career. I've
Mhm.
worked in so many different areas of, like, the financial, like I said, the financial sector. And I've worked with a lot of people who really truly enjoyed what they did. They did it because they were super passionate about it,
Mhm.
and money was not the primary reasons for them to get into it. But I also worked with people who did it because they cared primarily about the money, but at the same time they did the best job they could possibly do. And then I worked with the people who only cared about the money and did not care about their jobs whatsoever. So, like, you get people from all ends of the spectrum, and this goes in any career and any profession that you can think of.
Yeah.
All right, so I want you to tell me what role you currently work in and how did you
Mhm.
get to that position.
Okay, so technically, I am a clinical staff nurse. My job title is a clinical staff nurse with the organization I work for. They have an agreement where up to, around like say 8 employees can be released full time to work with the union, all right, which is the union I work with. So, technically speaking, my position would be a released nurse representative, released nurse organizer, however you want to, I guess representative would probably be, organizer is a little more interesting term or whatever you want to call it, but released nurse organizer representatives. But when you look at, for instance, my pay stub, it's just going to show me as a clinical staff nurse in the neurosurgical intensive care unit.
Gotcha. And how long have you guys had a union for in that hospital?
1991.
Wow, that's a long time.
We actually have For Florida, remember, this is Florida. We're not California. We have probably the strongest healthcare union in the state of Florida, and we've done actually really well. Like, for instance, and I would be curious to hear what your experience is, but we have, for one thing, we have a guaranteed work week, meaning if the census is low and I'm on one of my regularly scheduled days, they can't send me home and make me use my PL. If I want to stay, I can stay. Does Kaiser, do you guys have that agreement
Yeah.
there?
Oh yeah, during the pandemic, so we went from having like 3 to 400 patients per day to then having maybe 50 to 100 patients per day in the ER, and they
Mhm.
couldn't send us home.
So everyone in Kaiser has a guaranteed work week.
Yes.
It's so funny because, and I don't want you to necessarily publish this part, but my boss is always saying that we're the only place that has a guaranteed work week. And I know she's wrong. I mean, quite frankly, across the street, the VA has a guaranteed work week, right? And the VA, who do you think, we'll do a little trivia in the podcast. Who do you think represents the VA in Miami? Maybe you know already. And I'll give the clue is big,
Big.
big.
It's not your nurses union, is it?
It's not ours. It's not us. No.
Hmm.
I'll give you one more clue. The biggest.
The biggest union is United Health. I mean, what is it? SEIU
Okay.
1199.
The biggest union for what you and I are. I'm not catching it. Okay. It's CNA.
No.
The biggest union for nurses in the United States with over 225,000 members is the CNA, otherwise known as NNOC. And what's the other CNA?
SEIU. Oh,
No,
NNU. NNU.
Yeah, exactly. No,
Yeah.
SEIU is a whole different monster.
You're right.
SEIU is actually me.
Oh,
So CNA, NNU, NNOC. I'm a huge fan of them and their work, being a fellow organizer or whatever. But they represent the VA in Miami, and they have just had some really huge gains recently. One of which, for instance, if you're a 3-3, meaning you work 312s, 312 hours and 312 hours, that's what we call a 3-3, because we also have a 3-4. Anyways, they get paid for 80 hours in that pay period. They used to have to come in and do an 8-hour shift to make up for the 4 and 4. And now they get, they negotiated. It's called the 12/72/80, whatever. They get paid for 80 hours. Their pay scale runs from 45 an hour to 82 an hour for a bedside nurse, that's as good as it's going to get in Miami. Now, our pay scale is 34.70 to 68 an hour, which 68 is actually going to be the second highest in Miami. We did pretty good in our last contract. So anyways, I don't want to go rambling on and on and on, but I kind of forgot. I think
this is
I
not
did.
rambling. I love it. You can keep talking and talking, and I love all of it. I love
No,
this
I mean,
information.
I've actually, asked you in the chat a few questions like about unions and stuff because I know the CNA represents you at Kaiser, right? Isn't
Yes.
that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. And my friend who used to work with us, he now works for CNA. So I just, I love them as a union. And I remember I actually interviewed with them one time and I would have had to travel a lot and our family were not ready for this. But I remember, I'll never forget one of the things that because the people interviewing were bigger in there. I'll never forget what he said. We said, we go into every negotiation ready to strike, which is like, what to me was just beautiful, amazing. You know what I mean? Like they are ready to get things done. And it's just a little different style than SEIU or what we do, because with SEIU, you have a lot of labor management partnerships and things like this. So,
Yeah, no, I love that. And one thing that I should mention is even though we are all part of CNA, we all bargain differently for the nurses that we represent, right? So, like the Northern California hospitals bargain together for one contract that spans from San Francisco all the way to Fresno, California. It's from the west coast of California to the east coast of California. And what you have in Southern California, even though you may have some CNA sections of representation, they don't have the same contract that we do up here. So your friend that works in LA or Southern California, wherever he is, that friend is not going to be getting paid what the nurses in Northern California are getting paid.
He told me that. He knows that too. Yeah, his name's Derek, but he actually said a lot of people will get hired into LA so that they can get a job in Sacramento or Northern California or whatever. And I should ask you, like, is it getting to a point where there's enough people or enough nurses in the country are catching on to the Sacramento thing to where, like there's not as many, it's harder to get a job there, I guess what I'm saying. Is it getting that way already?
It's not getting that way because we are getting more nurses to come to Sacramento, but the fact that now our hospital system is hiring so many nurses, and nurses don't leave the Kaiser system once they're in there. Because if you work at one Kaiser hospital and you don't like it, you can always go to another one. You don't even have to interview for the position as long
Mhm.
as you're a Kaiser employee. It's based on seniority, right? You should know. Based on seniority. So
Yeah.
if you're next in line for that position based on your seniority level and someone else is below you, they'll call you.
Yeah.
They say, "Hey, you qualify for the position. Do you want it?" You say yes. Then your manager will have to give you a 30-day release time period. So like in 30 days, they have to release you from the department so that you can work in this new hospital, new Kaiser hospital
Oh,
that you've
wow.
applied to. Yeah.
Well,
That
ours is we don't have, obviously we have 60-day release period, but it's, that would be kind of more on it could be hospital to hospital because we have our main campus and our south campus and our north campus, but
yeah.
so yeah, I guess in a way it is similar, but I don't think how many facilities does Kaiser have?
Oh my gosh. Man, last time I checked, I think it's like over 30 hospitals.
Oh
I
yeah,
would have to like,
we're way
but
small.
over 100 facilities, like clinics and, urgent care centers and all those things. There's
Yeah,
hundreds of them.
we are one of the largest public health hospitals in the country.
Wow.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
another thing I should say about Kaiser in Sacramento specifically is we're trying to attain magnet status right now. And because of that, the directors in every department are trying to hire as many permanent nurses as possible.
Mhm.
So we haven't been hiring too many travel nurses. And now our vacancy rate in the ER, for example, is like 8%. So we have only an 8% vacancy rate. And anybody who's trying to apply to the ER is going to have a hard time because they're going to be competing with so many nurses trying to get into the ER. However, in San Francisco, Oakland, and everywhere else in the Bay Area, they have so
Mhm.
many positions available. So if nurses want to work there, they can easily get into the Kaiser system if they're willing to work in the Bay Area.
I'm about to say I've heard that, but I'm thinking when I say this, I need to preface it with I probably heard it from you, but I think I heard that, a lot of people are vacating San Fran just because even though the pay is so good. And I did actually watch one of your YouTube videos about that. But yeah, basically that even though the pay may be over 100 an hour, it's still not enough to live there. But believe it or not, we had a town hall meeting today. Our vacancy rate is the best in the state of Florida at 6% right now. So
Wow.
we have a total of 15,000 employees and 500 vacancies.
That is insane. Now, do you guys have ratios?
Yes, we do. We're the only hospital in Florida with ratios.
Wow.
And the ratios are ICU 1 to 2, IMCU 1 to 3 to 4, that's a range. ER is 1 to 4 to 5, that's a range. Med surge 1 to 6, telemetry 1 to 5, behavioral health 1 to 9. Did we cover everything?
Yeah. So do they actually keep those ratios though? Do they actually follow
Oh
them
yeah.
strictly?
Yes, yes. I mean, okay, let me put it this way. Okay, I'm ICU. We never violate ICU ratios. And we do have a strong enough union to enforce that. Now, one that does get violated would be telemetry. So for instance, they a lot of times will want to give telemetry nurses 6 patients as opposed to 5. But we, as of recently, formed a staffing committee, have found a lot of victories by kind of like reacting in real time. Like say you work night shift, okay, let's call the CNO. Let's see if anyone's available to come in. And through our partnership with management, we've been able to get them to comply, basically, or work together and get them to comply. So, but
Look at
now
that.
in Cali though, come on, you guys are 1 to 4 at the most, no
Yeah.
matter what, right? So
Yeah.
I think my boss always talks about how it took California like 20 years to get ratios, and I imagine we feel like it will take us a long time as well. But as long as we have, Florida is turning like more and more Republican by the second, and as that goes, we're not going to get ratios in the state legislature with that being the case. It's just not going to
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah.
And it's being a Republican is super popular around here. And if you're not a Republican in Florida, you're a communist, let me tell you. And make no mistake, because I know, interestingly, interviewing with CNA, for CNA, communist is a good word, right? Which is cool. I'm no judgment, right? Like I've grown to love my communist friends, but in Florida, communist is the worst word. You know what I mean? Like, because a lot of people came from communist countries, even my wife, Cubans. So to them, it's like they don't want to embrace any positive aspect of socialism, communism, any of that. They're not interested in any of that. I don't know if you already knew that about Miami culture, but that's the way it is here.
Yeah. So I will say that you just proved having a union is one of the most powerful ways to make sure that nurses get the benefits that they've been dreaming of. Because everything you just told me, that it's basically unheard of in probably every hospital in Florida, right? Like, or in
Mhm.
most hospitals in Florida.
Yeah.
Because I speak to nurses all the time who are leaving Florida because their benefits suck, their pay is terrible, and like they don't have ratios. So all these factors just lead them to leave the state because they don't have unions to fight for them like your hospital system does.
Yeah. Like I said, we are unique and we have done like really well. I mean, interestingly, like across the street from us with the VA is across the street from us, or University of Miami or whatever. And they obviously we all stay kind of like close in terms of pay or whatever. But one major difference being like, well, not from the VA. I'm not going to compare us to the VA because the VA has, especially with the help of the California Nurse Association, they're in the lead and they're like pulling away quickly, right? Which is great. I'm really happy for them. But aside from them, we're the only hospital with like a step scale, with, like, as I mentioned to you, a guaranteed work week, which before I forget, I was wondering, is there any way you could send me like a contract with like the Kaiser and the guaranteed work week, those type of things, just to, just so I could have it?
Yeah, I'll send you the whole contract. I mean, there's so many contracts I have. I can send you that one if you want. I have so many others too. If you need any of them.
Yeah, I mean, just to, I guess at the moment what I'm focused on is like seeing someone else that has in their contract a guaranteed work week,
Yeah.
which even though we practice a guaranteed work week, it's more to do with past practice than it is to do with contract language,
I
to
see.
say the least. I could elaborate more offline or whatever, but we definitely do. We do 100% practice a guaranteed work week, which no one else in Miami does. Well,
Mm.
except the VA,
Yeah. I will say this, it's not just Kaiser though that practices that. I worked for Sutter Roseville. They also practice that. They're unionized.
VA.
So there's many hospitals out here, but also Sutter is part of the CNA as well. So,
Okay.
if you're
There you
sponsored, represented by the CNA, you've got really good backing
go.
from them and all the
Hmm.
benefits that you want. But I know you have to go. So if anybody's watching this video and they want Joseph back on the show, please let us know in the comments section so we can have him back on, because I love these conversations. I could go on for hours, and I know you're
Yeah,
busy, but I can have you on again.
yeah, no, and I'm really glad that we did this. I'm gonna say I was a little nervous, and I've never done anything like this before. But because I really do feel truly aligned with like the content that you create, and I really do love and appreciate it. And for that reason, I think it's great to have this opportunity to meet with you. And I also love this conversation. I could go on and on and on to. It's not that I don't want to. It's just that I got hungry kids downstairs, and I'm looking outside. We're in the rainy season. I don't know if I want to save money on a delivery or just pay because it's like literally water is coming down like multiple swimming pools just being dumped on you right now. So you'll see look at like Only in Dade on Instagram, you'll see like there are so many cars like underwater right now. But
Oh man, yes, I forgot you're in Miami, man. Of
yeah,
course.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Oh geez. All right, man. I hope you don't get flooded on.
But I would be honored to return. But more than anything, I love the content that you and your wife do, and I wish you both success. And there may come a day where I'm trying to get a connection to get a job out in Cali. Who knows? We'll
All
see.
right. Yeah, let me know. If you enjoyed this episode, then watch this episode here where I speak with a nurse who has way too much experience as a case manager in the tech industry.